everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to day 18 of Vlogtober 2024 and to the final part 3 of crocheting up fabulous Ollie the Owl. So this is the last part in my little mini series. So today I show you how to sew on eyes, wings, put on his little tufty ears and add a beak. Now obviously if you're not interested in Ollie the Owl, how can you not be? But if you're not, then these 3 episodes have been a little bit boring for you. But I do know a lot of you have been watching. Now Lynn, she's making some owls. She's having a nice crafty day today, so do enjoy, Lynn. And Natalie, she's making one up for her daughter, and Lindsay is going to be making one for her husband. So a lot of you are watching, but don't worry, if you're really not into owls, then I will be doing a normal vlog again as of tomorrow. And I do have a few crafty projects that I've been working on. I also have another book to show you. Now this one is just fabulous. It's very, very me. I was hoping that I would have that for my book review that I did the other day, but I didn't realise when I ordered it was on like a back order. So not back order, pre-order. So it was on pre-order and it's only just come out. So I'm going to show you that tomorrow, but it's fabulous. And some other crafty bits. So again, I am going to just pop the tutorial for the rest of Ollie just after this, and I have decided that now this little one, he is going to go in my giveaway as well. So if you haven't entered, you could have a chance to win the famous one from my tutorials. All you need to do is go back to Vlogtober day 3. All of the vlogs are listed in a playlist. I'll put that in the description box down below. So just go back to day 3 and enter. Lovely prizes, and now fabulous Ollie the Owl. So enjoy the tutorial for part 3, and I will see you here tomorrow. Bye-bye. So in part 3, we're going to be assembling our owl. So you're going to need your body, you're going to need your 2 wings, 2 eyes. I'm also using some strands from each colour of my body. You can use whatever colours that you like to make these little tufty ears. I have some of this mustardy yellow to add a beak. You need your scissors. Now my darning needle that I'm using today is a metal darning needle. I still have quite a large eye there so that my yarn will go through, but the metal needles are slightly more pointy, so they will pass through that filling inside a little easier than the normal darning needle that I use. But anyway, let's put him together. You may also find it useful to have some pins. I like to pin my pieces in place first. It's not essential if you just want to hold them in place. It's up to you, but I do find it a lot more helpful to have some pins. So I'm using my original owl as a guide. To start with, I have pinned my eyes in place. On my one, I've come down 2 rows from the top and as central as I can possibly get them and close together. This way I know that I have some stitches here that I can use as a guide for my beak. So that's once I'm happy, we can start sewing. I tend to use both of my tails. I'll go one way with one tail and the other way with the other tail. So I'm just going to thread up my needle and show you what I do. So my needle is threaded, and I'm just going to show you when I sew, I go through both of the loops at the tops of the stitches. So those V's going round, I tend to use both loops. A lot of people when they sew on use just the back loop only. I tend to go through both loops. Okay, but my yarn is already on the back, so I'm just going to catch a loop of one of the stitches underneath. So I'm catching that. I'm going up through both loops and I'm going to pull that yarn through. Okay, so I'm connected on the body, I'm connected on the eye. Moving to the next stitch along, you can see again, I'm going down through both loops. I'm not connecting to the body just yet. I do that on the way back up. I mean, if you have your own way of doing this, just carry on as you normally would, but I'm catching a loop on his body and then I'm coming up. I'm working under both of those loops of his eye and then I'm going to pull through. Okay, and you can see if I run my nail around just these two stitches, the eye is connected. Take this pin out. So I'm going down through both of those loops of the next stitch round. Take my yarn through. Underneath I'm catching a loop. Then I want to come up through both loops of this next stitch around. So you can see the technique that I'm using. To the next stitch, I'm going down through both of those loops, pulling that yarn down. So I've caught another loop of his body. I've caught both loops of this stitch coming up. Okay, again, if I run my nail round there, you can see that the eye is nicely connected. So I'm taking that pin out. Then what I'm going to do, because I'm going to go up here with this tail end, going down both loops again. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push my needle and I'm going to aim to come out on the back. So I'm going to choose like a definite hole in the stitches. You might have to squodge his body down a little bit and then take that end through. Okay, and I'm just going to leave that there for the moment. What I'm now going to do is thread my needle, do the same, going around here until I've got to the top. So I've used the same technique and I am happy that that's secure. I've gone to the top. I'm going to go through that top stitch again. I'm going to carry on through. Now I want to come out in the same hole. So this is quite difficult on camera. I'll just make sure that he is coming out in the same hole he is. Okay, and then you want to pull your yarn through and then I'm just going to knot these two ends together on the back. Okay, twice should do it. Then I'm going to put the needle back in that same hole and just come up somewhere else. pull that yarn through quite tightly, and then the end will disappear back inside here. So I'm going to do that with the other end. Going back into the same hole, you will notice my knot has already disappeared back into the body. Just go down into that body, anywhere will do. Pull through and then pull tighter on that yarn. Snip off, and then that end disappears. And as you can see, the knot has disappeared as well. By pulling tight, I just sort of manipulate my stitches a little bit and that knot will disappear. So as you can see, we have one eye in place. I'm going to do exactly the same with the second eye, and then we'll be ready for his wings. So now our owl can see he's got two eyes. I'm going to use the same technique with his wings. I'm going to sew all around mine, but I did think you could just sew around the top and then his wings would flap. So that's entirely up to you. I'm going to use one tail to sew down one side, the other tail to sew up the other side. And then especially once I've sewn one on, I'm just going to keep watching. I want my wings to end in the same place, begin in the same place. So I tend to use his lines here of the stitches as a guide. I've gone up 2 rows, that's where they're both starting. And then if you take note of where they're finishing here, obviously, you know, each person's tension is different, so your wings may be a slightly different size. But I like, as I'm sewing the second wing on, just to make sure that they're lining up. You may need to sort of tug that one down a bit if it's going slightly awry. So again, you're just going to be catching a stitch from the body and then coming up under those 2 loops for each stitch, going around. So it's the same technique. I will show you what I do at the end, but you're just going to carry on. So it's coming up, going down using those 2 loops, catching a stitch, coming up, going down, catching a stitch, and then coming up. Exactly the same as the eyes. So I'll let you sew on his wings, then we'll add his little tufts here. Just a note, the curve of the wing where we put in those 6 trebles when we were making the wing up, that is the top of the wing. Again, I've taken both ends, I've pushed my needle through to the back of his body, and then they've come through the same hole. Then I'm going to double knot, then going through that same hole, I'm just going to thread my needle so it comes up somewhere else in his body. And you can see that first tug takes the knot in. Just pull nice and tight, and then the tail ends up inside. So do that with all of your tails. Now he's got his 2 wings. Now we're going to put his little tufty ears on. So we're going to be working in the end stitches. Okay, so in the corner, what we need to do is, I've got my colours. Okay, I'm going to form a loop. Then what I'm going to do, if I show you in this corner, I'm going to push the hook that I used when I hooked him up through. I'm going to loop all of those threads on that hook, so this is a little bit fiddly, and then bring through the stitch. Okay, don't bring them through too much, just have a loop that you can get your fingers through. Okay, so I'm going to go with my fingers and that tail end that we left, bring all the way through that loop, and then just pull. Okay, and then you can snip whatever length you like. I like mine to be quite short, so about there. There you have a little ear. Doing the same on that very end stitch. This time I don't have the extra end. Just looping those yarn ends over the end of your hook. Just gently pull through, pull up a loop. I'm going to go through, grab all of those bits of yarn, and then just pull down. Okay, so I want him to have equal ears. So it's about here, and then snip. And there he has 2 tufty ears. All we need to do now is put on his beak. So I'm using my original owl as a guide. I'm going to identify that I'm going to use this hole, and then the hole underneath. Okay, so I have threaded up my yellow. I'm going to go in from over here somewhere, and we'll lose that tail again when we've finished. I'm going to come up, okay, through that hole. I'm going to pull my yarn through. Don't bring this all the way through, leave a reasonable tail. And then I'm just going to go down to where I want my beak point to be. Then I'm going to come up in this hole here. Okay, and then pull, not too tightly. Okay, so we've gone down once. Then I'm going to go down in that bottom at the point. I'm going to come up halfway between my holes. Okay, so here's 1, here's 2. I'm coming up halfway. So we've got 2 halves. Then I want to go back down for my final pass through, and then I'm going to finish out on the back. So don't pull too tightly, and there you have his little beak. So with this tail here, I'm going to take back through that same hole, come out again in the same hole as this yellow on the back. Just double check that you haven't pulled too tightly, otherwise his beak's going to go inside. Then, as I've shown you before, we're just going to knot off and then hide these ends within his body in the same way. So there you have your finished owl. So we've sewn on all of his little bits there. He looks fabulous, doesn't he, with his tufty ears, his little beak, and he should sit up just nicely. So if you made up a little Ollie the Owl, do feel free to send me some pictures of him, and do let me know how you got on in those comments down below. He's such a cutie.